Hi, and welcome back to the Empowered Eczema podcast. I'm your host, Coach Michelle, otherwise known as the Eczema Coach. And today we have a special guest. We have Rosa Chiarenza, who is a dog trainer who specializes in service dogs and obedience. And we actually met at the Eczema Expo. She has a really incredible story. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, of course.
So, if we can just start with your own history with eczema, I know you have an extensive history like most of us do. So, if you want to start wherever, and we'll just go from there.
So I was diagnosed at 6 years old, and it progressively got worse as I grew up. So lots of doctor's appointments, lots of doctors not knowing what to do for me. It was honestly super awful. We did take a lot of advantage of topical steroids. So I think I did at some point fall into TSW, but my eczema, it was awful. Like, it created a lot of anxiety as I was growing up, to the point where I couldn't do a lot of things on my own. Like, when I was in the 5th grade, I could not walk into school by myself. My mom had to do it. She had to take me in every single day. And that anxiety was because of the eczema, because it tore me apart socially, because I wasn't able to make friends as easily, and people kind of looked at me weird, as the kid who had so many health issues, and people didn't, little kids, they don't understand eczema. So I was always set apart because of that, which caused socializing and just being able to interact with people hard. So that went on for a while, until as I got older, it got a little better. I gained a lot more confidence in myself, and I started to get confident through my eczema, and noticed that, my skin doesn't define who I am, and I shouldn't care what people think. But that's really hard to overall, like, believe. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to believe this. No, you have to really just decide. Your own brain has to say, okay, this doesn't define me, and I'm going to move past it. And so I eventually was able to walk into school by myself. So that was a great milestone for me. But when I was in the 8th grade, my skin miraculously just cleared, and we thought it was gone. And we were just confused. Honestly, we had no idea how it just completely cleared, everybody's dream, right? And then when COVID hit, it all came back worse than it had ever had it before. So we were stuck just kind of wondering how to get out of it. Like, we honestly had no idea what to do. And, during COVID, there was not much you could do, because hospitals were already full of people with COVID. So getting help from doctors was overall very stressful. That went on for a year or so, just constantly in bed. My sheets had to be washed several times a day, and I had to shower several times a day because my skin was so bad, and the oozing was just everywhere. Then I got put on Dupixent around later in that year, and that changed everything for me. I was able to, get a quality of life back, and overall, it was so satisfying. Everything was so much better. I joined the dance team, and that was a lot of fun. But since I was in what I kind of call a remission, my skin still wasn't perfect, and I was still recovering because I had just gotten on Dupixent. So that entire year of getting on treatment and going back to in-person school was a huge switch and a lot of stress on my body. So it took a while for me to really get into a good routine. And people at that age still didn't understand what was going on. When I was on the dance team, when I tried out for the following year, actually, I did not make it because the coach had a big thing against the fact that I had eczema. I missed one day during a practice. I had to miss because I was in such a bad flare. And, I was like, well, am I going to miss class today, or am I going to go in, sweat, and make this all worse? So I had to weigh the pros and cons of the situation and figure out what was going to be better. And ultimately, resting and putting some lotion and ointments on was the better decision at the time. So that's what I did. And she did not like that. So I ultimately she attempted to kick me off the team. But because, she couldn't say, I want you off the team because you're eczema, because obviously that is discrimination. So that didn't happen. She just set up a meeting with my parents and said, this is a problem to the team. She basically said it, but in different words, So that kind of ruined my sophomore year, because it was around sophomore year that this happened. But after that, my skin finally got into a really good routine overall. It was pretty stable. I've been on Dupixent for 4.5 years, and I would say it took a couple of years for it to really just have a solid effect on me. And I am pretty reliant on it, unfortunately, but we do have other plans in place if it were to stop working. But right now, it's what's given me my life back. So it's been pretty crazy. But ultimately, just growing up with all of that, and then it just changed so fast. So
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story. And I know a lot of people can relate to what you've gone through, and I know it's difficult. I have moments myself where I was that weird kid with eczema, and it does take a toll on your ability to be social and interact with other kids because you're just like, please don't look at me. And so for you, I know you've had a really hard time and pretty severe moments. Do you have areas of your body where your eczema just loves to come back over and over again?
my eczema, from the time I was 6 years old, it started on my elbows and then it spread. So I've had it since it's spreading, it's been all over my body. And I mean, like, all over. So right now, it's worse. The places that it likes to show up are my arms, behind my ears, especially like right here, where you put glasses or sunglasses, which also made COVID hard because we had to wear masks. And, there was eczema on my face. So I remember struggling really badly because I would be breathing into the mask and the hot air from my breath would exacerbate my eczema. I know, it's crazy, right? Things normal people would never think about, but that is what was one of my biggest struggles. That, and finding clothing that worked for my skin, because my skin was so dry that any clothing would get stuck to my skin and rip it off. And that was painful. And not a lot of people know what that's like, but the people that do, they're like, oh yeah, they know the pain there. But yeah.
So, something that I thought was really incredible that you shared with our group at the Eczema Expo was how you're bringing dog training and eczema. There's a link there that I think the people listening is going to find incredible. So, can you kind of share that link that you have there?
So it all began in 2022. My other dog passed away, and I had had him for life. He always comforted me when I was having itch attacks, anything with eczema, when I was sad and I was just overall very stressed. He just knew, and he would come over and he would comfort me, and it was the sweetest thing. And so then when he passed away, it was very hard on me, But I got, we, 2 days later, spontaneously, we found another puppy and we were like, okay, you're coming home with us. And we did. And I wanted him to have a purpose. And this is where it gets kind of crazy. I never planned on him being a service dog or helping me with my eczema. It just happened that way. And I was like, I want you to have a purpose. So I trained him all these fun tricks, just like I did with my first dog. And it was a lot of fun. Then I was like, wait a minute. What if I taught you? I wonder if you could stop me from scratching. So one day while I was camping, I just started teaching him it, and he caught on so fast. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be beneficial to me. And so he's almost 3 now, but he went through all of the service dog training, being in public, being able to handle loud distractions, everything. And he was more than qualified. But in the end, he learned all of this other stuff as well. But that was the biggest thing, is he will stop me from scratching. He will come from another room. I could be in the pantry, and I'll start scratching, and all of a sudden you just hear the pitter patter of little feet, and there he is. And he will do anything to get me to stop. Even if he has to start biting my clothes, like, he will do whatever he has to get me to stop. And he knows his job. But it's absolutely incredible. But the other thing that he'll do is pick up things for me, which is really helpful when the back of my knees are flared, or honestly anything. anything that's flared, when it hurts, when it stings, when it burns, and he's right there to just pick up something, and it makes all the difference. That is the biggest thing, is the scratching, and it's honestly just, I'm still amazed by it. It was just a spontaneous thing. I was like, I wonder if I could teach you this. Once I figured out how beneficial it was, I did it. I just kept going with it. And the funny thing is I do a lot of social media content, and I've had a lot of people who are like, wow, that is amazing. And then other people who are like, that's weird. There's no way that eczema can, be disabling in a sense. And believe it or not, it can. I noticed the difference. He's been doing it for so long that I will sometimes catch myself, because with eczema, you usually scratch subconsciously without even realizing you're doing it. So you cause damage without even realizing. And the worst is in the nighttime, because, even if you try to stop yourself in the day, you can't stop yourself at night. You will do what you do. It's just out of your control. But, he can wake me up in the night if I start having a really bad scratch attack, and he'll calm me down. And the tactical stimulation of petting him or just having him there and touching him keeps my hands busy so that I'm not scratching. But overall, it's gone to a point where I can notice myself and I will stop. Sometimes I don't, but, we have our slip ups, but he's been incredibly beneficial to me, and it's absolutely amazing the way he can help like that.
Just a visualization in my head of what that looks like, especially at night, is such a cool thing to think about. Like, I'm getting really, really excited, especially for, the people listening to this are the people where their clothes are sticking to their skin. They're subconsciously scratching. They see the benefit of that. And I'm sure people's mouths have just dropped open listening to that, because I think, oh my God, I literally at one point put ankle weights on my wrists so that if I woke up to go scratch, the weight of the ankle weight on my wrist would make me wake up. If I had a dog that could just get me to stop.
I've never heard that one, but that would work too. Yeah.
I was trying everything to get myself to stop. And it's a really difficult thing. And I think you hit the nail on the head where you're like, okay, the dog comes, and then I have that tactile stimulation of petting the dog. And then it's like also an animal that you're very close with. And I'm sure that's so calming, and it kind of calms that whole process down to where now you've essentially he's trained you into getting yourself to kind of be aware of when you're subconsciously scratching.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Later that year, I ended up getting another service dog, since I was going to be moving out of state, which never happened, but I got her anyways. And she does the same thing. Although, since she's a little bigger, she can do guiding tasks. So it's what we call sighted guide. And if I'm having a day where my skin is flared, or even if I'm having some kind of reaction with my skin and I'm overall just in a lot of pain or a lot of itch and I'm out and about because I've got things to do, right? She can guide me and keep me with the person I'm with. So if I'm with my mom, if I'm with my brother, whoever I'm with, she will follow that person. All I have to do is hold on to the handle and she'll keep me with them. So there's no spacing out or just sitting there like wanting to itch. It keeps my hands busy by holding on to the handle, as well as making sure that I know where I'm going. But that's another thing that was really helpful. At first I was like, but as I used it more, I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. But her being able to guide me on those days where my skin is just so flared that I'm just not mentally there, because I think we've all had those days where we're just really out of it because we're struggling so much, and she'll just guide me, and it's really incredible. But
Is all this training self-taught? Like, is it something you're naturally gifted at? Like, are you just really, really good at training dogs? Or how did that whole thing kind of come about?
yeah, I trained my first dog when I was 10, maybe younger, and I pursued that. I always told my mom I wanted to be a dog trainer and that I wanted to train service dogs to help people. And that's exactly what I did, and I'm still pursuing that. I'm still learning, and I'm still finding out all of the different things about dog training, but I've been doing it for a very long time. And professionally, like really starting as a career only within the last 2 or 3 years. But, studying dog training, finding out everything there is to know since I was 10 years old, it was something I loved. And teaching him all those tricks, that was fun, you know. And like I said, he gave me a lot of emotional comfort by just his natural ability to do that. And then now I have 3 dogs, and I trained all 3 of them, and I train dogs for other people, and I train service dogs, and it's amazing. What's kind of crazy is I originally wanted to be a police officer. So I love dog training. I always wanted to do it on the side, but my other choice was to be a police officer, specifically with the canine unit. And I went to college to get a criminal justice degree, but unfortunately, I was later diagnosed with POTS and MCAS and chronic fatigue syndrome. So it kind of like tore my life apart, right? And I toughed it out as much as I could, and I really tried, and I was there for almost a year, and then I had to withdraw the second semester. So it really sucked because, you know, even to this day, I think about the things that I wanted to do that I can't because my health has progressed so much. I'm not able to even think about being a police officer anymore. It's just not even in the question, you know, with the fatigue that I have. But I set out for new dreams. You know, I have new goals now. Now I train dogs full time as much as I can, and I love it. It's amazing. And honestly, it kind of feels like a calling to me because I tried so many other different things, and I even went to college, and I ended up back here doing what I set out to do in the first place. So clearly, dog training is my thing because I'm back here doing it again. And honestly, it's the only thing that's ever felt right. As much as I wanted to be an officer, and still do, honestly, I sit here and I'm just like, when I do dog training, it goes by so fast. You know, I do hour-long sessions and it just passes so fast. And somebody asks me a question about dog training, and I just know, you know, you like when you have that feeling, you know, this is what you're supposed to do. That is the feeling that I get with dog training. And it's been incredible, especially to teach people about service dogs and the many things that they can provide, because a lot of places won't train service dogs for things like eczema because they don't consider it a disability. But you know, any condition, even injuries, can be qualifying for a disability if it's disabling to you. You know, everybody is different, but there are a lot of things that you can't find service dogs trained for, and eczema is one of them. So that's what I do, and it's brought a smile to my face. So
Absolutely beautiful. What a touching story. And I know it's emotional for you, especially being so vulnerable about how your career shifted and all of that stuff. But it sounds like you really found your purpose, which is so beautiful. And I think the more that I'm interviewing people on this podcast, the overlap of eczema and these other places is absolutely incredible. And it makes me so excited to be able to share people these different avenues and these different things you can do, even if you have something as debilitating as eczema, as severe eczema. So thank you so much for coming on. And if you're listening to this, we're going to have all of Rosa's information in the description so you can contact her, see her social media, and all of that. So thank you so much for coming and joining me today.
it was really fun. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah, amazing. Well, have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.